Hello, Volvo 5-cylinder time again, and today clutch upgrades. On the right we have the standard Volvo 850 turbo, all models, manual pressure plate. It's sold separately for the T5, the T5R, but when you buy it, a clutch for the 850R, you will actually get the clutch plate and the pressure plate as a one unit. The Volvo number is 9176262 and this one is actually from my 850R. I drove with it for a while after I did a clutch upgrade. And on the left we have a contender, much more heavy, the Sachs 707, actually from an Audi, I think one 1990s Audi model. And this pressure plate is a very popular upgrade to get a clutch that is significantly more heavy than the original one, but will actually handle a whole lot more of torque and power. This is not a bolt-on in any means. It will cost you quite a bit to get it here. This pressure plate I think runs around somewhere 300 to 350 euros, and then you still have to have some machining done, some balancing done to get it to work properly. And then there is another catch. You actually need the 850R clutch plate, and as a double whammy, it's not sold separately, it's sold along with this pressure plate. There are two. The 850R has this clutch plate with blue springs. The T5Rs, they have green springs, and the other big difference why you can't make it work with the 707 is that this centerpiece here is a bit more bulkier. The 850R one has a smaller contact area on the outer perimeter, and this center is smaller, so it will actually fit into this 707 clutch pressure plate that is actually smaller in size, so it's seems to be more compact than the original one. So in order to get this 707, I'll get you the part number for it and put it in the description. What you need to do is, there are two ways of doing this. You take your flywheel and you remove these pins, centering pins, and these centering pins, after you remove them, you have to make new holes and make them move them so they are a bit more moved out, just a very minute amount. This is actually I would consider the better way of doing this, but on this example here they have not been moved. They have taken the original 850 flywheel and just left it as is, and then this is a heavy flywheel. To get it to fit, here they have actually drilled these holes bigger, and well, I have it on my car. It's worked fine for many years. It's the same way of mounting it. There are two ways. Personally, I would prefer to get the other way, but that's more expensive, so there's not many who do it and not many who are willing to do it. So then if you have to go with enlarging these holes, then you go with that way, obviously. And it's worked for me, and I know other people it's worked for them, and some people say it's just fine. Who knows? But these holes are basically filed out on the outer side, so they will fit because they are a bit too tight to fit from the factory as such. And when we match these two together, you can actually see that they are now, the holes are matching, they are overlapping, and everything is just fine. I have the completely wrong position to sitting to be moving these, because these are a few. This is about, I think, about 10 kilos, this is about 5 kilos, and so on. But really, once you have modified this pressure plate, which is the fastest and the cheapest, just to make it fit on these centering holes, and you have your magically found your 850R clutch plate, or bought it with the original pressure plate. Assembly is just like any clutch assembly. You put the disc and then you can mount the pressure plate and then bolt it down. The one important thing after you have basically modified a lot of things regarding the whatever you modify is to actually have it sent to a balancing place that will balance the whole mass, make it rotate nice and evenly, so there are no extra vibrations. Because if you are a few, not a few millimeters, but perhaps 0.1 or 0.2 of a millimeter off on some place, then this will actually can cause vibrations. So the really most important part is that you have this whole set, minus of course the clutch plate, because this moves freely in many ways. So you have your flywheel, you have your pressure plate sent off to be balanced, and I think we can see that on this one here, this was balanced. Some material was actually taken away to make this in balance. This one actually is from a company called TM Racing, a kit that they sell, and I think their total price for this kit was €1,500. If you start and do it yourself and find a machinist, find a balancer and so on, you can get away with around €1,000 to get this whole set complete. And here you can see that they have marked, I hope you can see it, they have marked it with some paint, this flywheel, and they have also marked the pressure plate with the same paint, meaning that it has to go exactly in this position back onto each other in order to be in balance. If you are going to use the standard 850 gearbox to do this, snug and nice and snug, if you're going to use the 850 gearbox with the external slave cylinder, this will be actually, I think, 2 to 4 times more heavy to depress than the original clutch. On my car, I went with a 1998 M56H gearbox with the internal slave cylinder, and this makes the clutch pressing a bit more soft. Still not a daily driver soft, but you can actually drive with it daily. And in the end, once you have driven with it for a while, you get used to the clutch. That it's a bit more heavy, and you get the most fun when you jump into another car with a regular clutch, and then you basically push your foot through the floor. It's quite a big of a difference. If you ever have the time to jump into a car with a 707 clutch plate, please ask the owner if you can try to press it, because it's a bit of a surprise when you try it the first time. But you get used to it very quickly. So I wouldn't say it's a massive problem, but this is then your clutch assembly that will be more or less bomb-proof, probably good for 500-600 horsepower without any extra things. Then regarding these clutch pedals, there are of course these variants that you can buy that have this sintered friction material, or friction area are sintered, and yeah, they will probably, I would say, if you're going to have a drag car, track car, something like that, then I would go for a sinter. But for any type of normal driving, the way you want to actually be able to, say, enjoy the experience and not just go for minimum amount of time around a track or a quarter mile time, then I would recommend going for the 850R plate. There are of course some people who have bought these sinters that are also available without this balance, without these springs. And when you buy the ones without the springs, then I have had one friend who had replaced 3 gearboxes in one summer because he had an unsprung sinter clutch. And basically I think it's because the force that comes upon the gearbox is so explosive. If the force is either on or off, so it will actually destroy the gearbox because of this. And that's why I would recommend you always have if you're going to use this one or the 850 or the sinter model, buy one with springs, because it will be more pleasurable driving experience and your gearbox will be more safe. Personally, I don't think I would ever even consider a sinter clutch, because I use mine from day to day driving. Yeah, this is not going to be with me, I hope, for too much longer. I have one guy who's already reserved this 707, so if you want to know any more or want to have any more videos about it, please let me know before it goes beyond my reach and into another car, for hopefully many happy years of driving. And yes, so this was the okay, why not cover the regular upgrade. So the 707, this will basically be when you are going past, say, 350 horsepower, when you're going to the big areas, or you just want a clutch that will last your lifetime and never slip. So of course with a reasonable amount of power, never slip, but you know what I mean. If you want to have your T5 or T5R, 2 liter, 2.3, doesn't matter. If you want to have a clutch upgrade that is basically bolt-on, you can buy the Volvo 850R clutch. It will be a direct fit, and I would recommend you go directly to Volvo to buy it, because sometimes when you have bought these other brands, I have seen that they have got the T5 clutch with the green springs and so on. It's actually the only difference is this clutch plate. The 850R with the blue springs has a narrower contact area, which gives more, so all the pressure is on a narrower area and it will be less likely to slip. And in the 850R clutch pack you get this blue spring clutch disc and this pressure plate. And this pressure plate is actually identical, as I said already, to the T5 and the T5R. It's only the 850R manual that has this this set. And usually when you go to buy a T5R or a T5 clutch repair, if your clutch is slipping, you will only get the disc. But with the 850R you will get the pressure plate and the clutch as one package. And then the push bearing in the clutch, if you're doing any clutch work, the push bearing in that presses on here to release the clutch, you should always replace that. You should never ever leave that in the car. Even if you have just driven it from the shop to your home and then open it again, you always replace that, because they will start to have some nasty sounds when they are 10 years old. You can, perhaps some of you guys have get this strange sort of metallic howling when you slowly depress the clutch and the car starts to move. That's the sound from the clutch release bearing. So that you should change, and I think it's a $30, 30 euro part, so it doesn't really make any sense not to change it, because the clutch replacement time is at Volvo, I think, calculated to 4 or 5 hours. So you're paying for 4 or 5 hours labor, and basically they have to remove it anyway, so it makes no sense whatsoever to put back the one that you had. And if you have this problem that it starts to make noises all the time, or it starts to make a little bit of rattle, then I would say if you open the clutch plate for 5 hours labor or do it yourself in a weekend, then it's much better to replace everything. If you really want to go, some of you might have seen that if you remove the flywheel behind there on the crank, there is actually a gasket that will keep in the oil, and this is a typical point where the engine starts to leak oil. Or typical, it's not uncommon that you will have oil dripping from behind here. So actually removing the flywheel with, I think, 7 or 8 bolts, okay, more like 10. So if you remove all of these bolts, then you can get to that gasket and replace it while you're doing it. So basically that's while you are in there, repair, more or less. So if you're going to open up that area, basically replace everything. Even these bolts here, these bolts are, you can buy them for about €1.5 euros each at Volvo, and I think it's a good idea to, if you buy them and once you have torqued them down, they are stretched bolts, so you can use, they are designed to be used only once. So if you, once you remove them, you replace them. Same as the bolts here that hold down the clutch, you replace them as well. And the bolts that you get from Volvo that hold on the pressure plate, they are, I think, 8-9 classed bolts. That's, if I remember correctly, they are something like 800 newtons before they snap. So that's the snapping force of them, and 9 is or something else regarding the material. But the big boys, they recommend that you put the bolts that you get them from another place, same dimensional length and so on, but that they be actually be 10, 11, 10, 9 or something. There will be a higher grade bolt that they will actually clamp down more on the pressure plate. So that's, I think, a very confusing clutch video. So hopefully there are a few questions and I have a reason to do a follow-up video or a more informal video about this. Not informal, but a video with more structured information. And of course, good idea perhaps to wash your hands after playing around with a different type of clutches. So thank you guys, until next time.